All right, guys, here we go. Let's stay sharp.
Your friends are really good gamers.
Huge attacker spotted behind the tree.
That's you. Got him.
And you're no slouch either.
Okay, John, there's a green bonus block. It's all yours. It's right behind you.
But if your slow upload speeds freeze the game because you have cable...
John, attacker to your right. To your right.
And you end up succumbing to hordes of marauding robo-bunnies...
John, stop standing there. Run!
Can't move.
You're not a bad gamer. You just need better internet.
John, we told you to get AT&T Fiber.
Way to go, John. Nice one, dude.
With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with unlimited internet data included. No annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Speeds not guaranteed and vary based on combined up and download speeds versus major cable providers' 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Restrictions apply. Check availability at att.com/getfiber.
Amazon Prime members now get free grocery delivery with a minimum order. You'll get your groceries with 2-hour delivery. So in that time, you can finally figure out where the biblioteca is, learn how to play the acoustic guitar, and I guess get a puka shell necklace. Do a makeup tutorial, but realize halfway contouring is hard, and you're beautiful just as you are. Whatever it is you're doing with your time, your shopper will be carefully picking out your favorite organic meats, produce, dairy, and snacks while providing contactless delivery to your door. Free 2-hour grocery delivery, now with Prime.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 263. Everything about the 2008 plea deal that Jeffrey Epstein was gifted has been and will always be straight garbage. From the way they went about making it a state case instead of a federal case, to the way Dershowitz, Kenneth Starr, and the other numbnuts like Gerald Lefcourt finessed the local yokel prosecutors, it has all been nothing but a dumpster fire. And these girls, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, they had their rights violated. Nobody ever told them that this plea deal was going down. They were kept in the dark. But it's par for the course with the way the federal government had conducted themselves throughout this whole entire ordeal. It is to be expected, considering the way the federal government protected Jeffrey Epstein for decades. Well, we know that the survivors appealed the original ruling, and the 11th Circuit Court and the three-panel judge system that heard the appeal, well, they ruled against it as well. And in that ruling, it was a 2-1 ruling, and the one judge who dissented, Judge Hull, dissented loudly. But that's not all. There was also an amicus brief filed on behalf of the survivors from the lawmakers who actually wrote the CVRA. And I think that played a pretty big part in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals deciding to hear this case en banc. They're going to have the whole entire panel filled. All of the judges will be sitting in, and they will hear the case and give it another look. And I doubt, after they see what has been provided as new evidence in this case and what has already been out there in this case, I don't think that the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals is going to side with the government here. Let's jump into our article from the Miami Herald and see what the author of this article, Jay Weaver, has to say. Headline: Epstein survivors get second chance at justice against sex offender in appeals court. And remember, when this was all happening and when this ruling was originally made, I said then that with how fiery the dissent was by Judge Hull and the amicus brief filed on the behalf of the survivors by the actual authors of the law, that it was going to bode well for them to get a full hearing in front of all of the judges of the 11th Circuit. And here we are. I think with cases like this, it's very rare that you'll see the full appeal, the full appellate court not see the case and take the case if there is such fiery dissent from one of their own members. And that's what we see here. That's how it's unfolded. And we'll see going forward what the whole entire panel of judges say when they see the case. But this is definitely a step in the right direction and a step towards justice, in my opinion. The young survivors of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein will get a second chance at seeking justice after an entire appellate court agreed Friday to rehear claims that federal prosecutors in South Florida violated their rights when they kept them in the dark about a secret plea deal with the now deceased Palm Beach multimillionaire, aka pedophile. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals vacated a previous panel's 2-1 decision that rejected a petition by one of Epstein's survivors. She sought to undo the agreement that federal prosecutors struck with Epstein not to charge him with trafficking girls for his own sexual pleasure more than a decade ago. And remember, the three judges on the panel, one of them was a Harvard grad. One of them was an octogenarian, and the other one, Judge Hull, was the only woman on the panel, and she was the one with the fiery dissent. I mean, you can't, a judge, look, I'm sure that these judges are good at their jobs, right? But there should be nobody from Harvard involved in anything that's going on in this case, in my opinion, and never mind the 91-year-old judge. Let's be real, at 91, his faculties are still there. This guy's living in a bygone era. All right. I don't want to hear nothing about a 91-year-old judge, especially hearing cases like this. So I always thought that the whole panel would end up hearing this case and that it would come across their desk. And I think that this is most certainly the proper way to go here. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals vacated a previous panel's 2-1 decision that rejected a petition by one of Epstein's survivors. A majority of the appeals court in Atlanta voted to rehear the appeal, setting the stage for a possible solution for potentially dozens of survivors in the groundbreaking Epstein case. Despite its ruling in April, the 3-judge panel had called the South Florida prosecutor's deal with Epstein beyond scandalous and a national disgrace. And while they had harsh sentiments, and while they had flowery words, what they didn't have was an iron fist. 2 judges decided that there wasn't enough to overturn it, while the only judge standing strong was Judge Hull. And in my opinion here, I don't think that there was any doubt in anyone's mind who is following things that this case should have been heard by the complete panel of judges en banc, because there's no way that the 3 judges alone should have been responsible for hearing something as important as this case and this portion of the case. Epstein, 66, committed suicide, allegedly, a year ago while he was in custody on federal sex trafficking charges in New York. The 3 judges narrowly rejected Courtney Wild's petition to compel federal prosecutors in South Florida to charge Epstein on the grounds that the feds violated Wild's and other survivors' rights when they cut a secret deal with him behind their backs. Instead, prosecutors allowed Epstein to plead guilty to lenient solicitation charges in state court in Palm Beach County. And again, that is completely and utterly against the law from where I'm sitting. That goes against the CVRA. And I think that the 11th Circuit, when they see the whole entire bundle of joy that comes before them, and with somebody like Judge Hull already ready to explode with anger over this, I think that the case is going to move forward here, and I have a really sneaking suspicion that Courtney Wild and the survivors, they're going to win this appeal, I think, folks. And again, I don't have any, inside information or anything. That's just my opinion from the way things have been bouncing in this case so far. And it certainly looks like here that we'll get a ruling where the appeal is upheld, and we'll see some movement as far as that plea deal and what happens in regards to repercussions for the CVRA being disregarded. I had confidence this day would come, Wild said in a statement through her lawyers. We have fought for 12 years, and as I've said before, no matter how many obstacles pile up, we will never give up fighting for what is right. And it's pretty awesome to see these survivors snatch the narrative. It's pretty awesome to see them stand up when they have been silenced for so long and take these people on directly. No more hiding, no more running, no more fearing for your life. Maxwell behind bars, Epstein rotting away in the ground or cremated, whatever it may be. He's gone, and these survivors still remain strong. And not only that, they have not lost one bit of their motivation to right this extreme wrong. And you have to give them a nod of your head and a tip of the cap when you see girls like Courtney Wild stand up and be so brave and continue to push forward and continue to force the hand of the federal government and the prosecutors into doing their job. Her lawyers vowed to get Epstein's secret plea deal with South Florida prosecutors thrown out. And if this gets thrown out, folks, the implications are huge, right? That means nobody has any sort of immunity, nobody has any sort of protection, and it is game on. So this is a huge deal here. This is something that's very important for the whole case moving forward. And if we see this plea deal get thrown out, folks, if we see the federal government toss that plea deal, it is going to be lights out for the co-conspirators. I always talk about an ironclad, rock-solid case is what you need to when you're dealing with people such as this, and that is exactly what the federal government will have if this plea deal gets tossed. This is an important ruling for crime survivors, not just for Epstein survivors, but all survivors of federal crimes. Wild's lawyers, Paul Cassell and Brad Edwards, said, "We look forward to arguing before the full 11th Circuit that the secret plea deal violates the Crime Victims' Rights Act and that this particular deal should be rescinded." And I'd be sweating bullets if I was Ghislaine Maxwell and the co-conspirators right now, the Core Four and the rest of them, considering that it's going to be Bradley Edwards who's leading the charge here. And we all know that Bradley Edwards does not stop until things are going in the right direction. This is a man of great conviction. This is a man of high character. And this is a man who has stood tall against some of the most powerful people in the world, side by side with these survivors, and has never blinked. So these people, all of these so-called members of polite society, I hope they're all having a lot of sleepless nights, because the hammer most certainly is coming. Previously, the three-judge appellate panel had ruled that because prosecutors never brought charges against Epstein in the federal court in South Florida, his survivors were not legally allowed to seek relief under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. And again, more legalese, right? A loophole. The court and those two knucklehead-ass judges could have easily ruled in the favor of Courtney Wild here and got this thing moving without making it go to the appeals court. But they didn't have the courage or the inner fortitude to do so. Despite our sympathy for Miss Wild and others like her, who suffered unspeakable horror at Epstein's hands only to be left in the dark and, so it seems, affirmatively misled by government lawyers, we find ourselves constrained to deny her petition, Judge Kevin Newsom wrote in the majority opinion, joined by Judge Gerald Toflat. And Gerald Toflat is the 91-year-old judge, and Judge Kevin Newsom is the Harvard grad. So when this all was breaking and we were covering it, I was talking about that angle as well, how there should never have been a 91-year-old judge hearing this. And I mean, come on, a guy from Harvard, what are his ties to Dersh? Was he ever in any of his classes? What about the people who taught him? Did they learn from Dershowitz? 7 degrees of separation. Everybody at Harvard with a law degree must be looked at skeptically, in my opinion, when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein situation. The panel's decision was appealed to the full 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals because of a sharply critical dissent by the third panelist, Judge Frank Hull. And remember, I think the amicus briefs played a huge part in this as well. A lot of times courts won't accept those unless they're powerful. And in this case, they most certainly accepted them. And I think it went a long way for the 11th Circuit to decide to hear the case in full because of not only Frank Hull's dissent, but the amicus briefs filed as well. The majority concludes that our court is constrained to leave the survivors empty-handed, and it is up to Congress to amend the CVRA to make its intent clear, Hull wrote. Not true. The empty result here is only because our court refuses to enforce a federal statute as Congress wrote it. The CVRA is not as impotent as the majority now rewrites it to be. And again, that's why I think that it's important to remember the amicus brief that was filed by the actual authors of this law. Dianne Feinstein was one of them. John Kyle was one of them. And the third name escapes me right now. But they all filed this amicus brief with the court, letting them know that they don't think that the court is interpreting this the right way. And I think that it's very important to remember that. Given the undisputed facts that the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami completed its investigation, drafted a 53-page indictment, and negotiated for days with Epstein's defense team, the office violated federal law and the victims' rights by not conferring 1 minute with them or their counsel before striking the final non-prosecution agreement deal granting federal immunity to Epstein and his co-conspirators, Hull concluded. Wild's petition filed in October challenged U.S. District Judge Kenneth Mara's decision that she and others were not eligible for any major relief, even though he found federal prosecutors violated the rights of Epstein survivors by leaving them in the dark about his non-prosecution agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami. It's crazy, right? They had, Judge Mara's office here has all these words, you're not eligible for any major relief, blah, 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 even though he found that federal prosecutors violated the rights of Epstein survivors. How much more clear and cut is it than that? Once again, though, the two-tier justice system rears its ugly head. One set of rules for us and a whole nother set of rules for them. That office, which was headed at the time of the deal by Alexander Acosta, who later became President Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, has recused itself in the civil case and is represented by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Atlanta. I don't know who should be representing them, but I'll tell you this much right now. It was straight up negligent the way they prosecuted this case. And borderline criminal, in my opinion. The prosecution worked hand in hand with the defense, Dershowitz, Starr, Lefcourt, to actively demean and destroy the image of these girls who came forward. The appeals court, I would think and I would hope, is going to dig their teeth so deep into this that it's going to have shockwaves rocking through the system. Because what happened here, folks, is an absolute travesty of justice. Wild and another plaintiff, Jane Doe 2, wanted the judge to restore the originally planned federal sex trafficking charges against Epstein in South Florida, but Mara refused to go that far for a couple of reasons. Epstein died in August 2019. He was found hanging in his Manhattan jail cell following his arrest on renewed sex trafficking charges levied by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. The arrest by federal authorities in New York City, where Epstein also maintained a home, followed an investigative series in the Miami Herald, Perversion of Justice, that dissected the decision not to charge Epstein federally and, for the first time, presented interviews of Epstein survivors, including Courtney Wild. Mara said he did not have the authority to order federal prosecutors in South Florida to charge him, even before Epstein's death. In his September ruling, Mara left open the possibility that certain requests by the survivors could be fulfilled. They wanted to meet with prosecutors and get an explanation for why the U.S. Attorney's Office in South Florida didn't seek a sex trafficking indictment against Epstein when he initially investigated 10 years earlier, and why they kept the status of the case secret from the survivors. And that's exactly what they wanted to know, and what they had a right to know under the CVRA. But once again, federal prosecutors acted like they were these miniature despots, and they did whatever the hell they wanted to do. And as far as Acosta goes, he most definitely deserves scorn. He most definitely deserves his share of the blame. But if anybody thinks that Acosta cut this deal with Jeffrey Epstein without his boss and his boss and his boss being involved, you have not been paying attention to how the intelligence apparatus works. Because, folks, that is exactly what's going on here. This whole entire plea deal was formed and put into place by friends in high places of Jeffrey Epstein, and with the help of his high-profiled, well-placed in the legal system lawyers, Alan Dershowitz, Kenneth Starr, and Gerald Lefcourt, to name a few. The federal government should be ashamed of themselves. But what occurred here, and what we see as more of this information comes to light, must be rectified. This situation must be addressed, and this plea deal must be thrown out with the garbage. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that pertain to this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the GoFundMe, thank you very much. All right, everybody, we'll be back tomorrow and we'll start all over again. If you folks are going out tonight, or if you're out already and you're listening on your way home or whatever it may be, please do not drink and drive. All right, everybody, until later.
All right, guys, here we go. Let's stay sharp.
Your friends are really good gamers.
Huge attacker spotted behind the tree.
That's you. Got him.
And you're no slouch either.
Okay, John, there's a green bonus block. It's all yours. It's right behind you.
But if your slow upload speeds freeze the game because you have cable,
John, attacker to your right. To your right.
and you end up succumbing to hordes of marauding robo-bunnies,
John, stop standing there. Run!
Can't move.
you're not a bad gamer. You just need better internet.
John, we told you to get AT&T fiber.
Way to go, John. Nice one, dude.
With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with unlimited internet data included. No annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Speeds not guaranteed and vary based on combined up and download speeds versus major cable providers' 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Restrictions apply. Check availability at att.com/getfiber.
All right, guys, here we go. Let's stay sharp.
Your friends are really good gamers.
Huge attacker spotted behind the tree.
That's you. Got him.
And you're no slouch either.
Okay, John, there's a green bonus block. It's all yours. It's right behind you.
But if your slow upload speeds freeze the game because you have cable,
John, attacker to your right. To your right.
and you end up succumbing to hordes of marauding robo-bunnies,
John, stop standing there. Run!
Can't move.
you're not a bad gamer. You just need better internet.
John, we told you to get AT&T fiber.
Way to go, John. Nice one, dude.
With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with unlimited internet data included. No annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Speeds not guaranteed and vary based on combined up and download speeds versus major cable providers' 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Restrictions apply. Check availability at att.com/getfiber.